everybody. Can you hear me now? Am I audible? Testing. Chit. Testing. What's up, everybody? This is a test. Lots of OBS tests you might have noticed. So YouTube did this thing recently that really screwed over a lot of content creators. And if you're on Twitter, if you follow content creators, like especially BreadTubers, and you might have noticed it, a lot of people are doing tests. A lot of people are canceling their streams. And the reason is that YouTube discontinued how it does Google Hangouts, so they've made it difficult, to say the least. It's kind of like imagine if Uber, because YouTubers are just video Uber drivers, basically, right? It's kind of like if Uber discontinued the way it does navigation, or one of the features of its navigation for its app, and didn't really give anybody a replacement that would work. What up, dogs? I think the dogs are excited because I think my brother's home. And my brother's... Shh. Luna, come on. Luna, come on. What's in... Hey. Oh my God. Yeah, you're really excited, aren't you? I'm not taking you on a walk right now. You might think that that's what's going to happen. I wish you all could see. Maybe you can't. Hold on. I love how Powder gets up on top of Lily, like Lily's like a stand or something. It's a difference. Hey, why did you all come in here as soon as I started streaming? They were quiet for like 2 hours, and then all of a sudden they're so loud. So anyway, sorry. What was I saying? What's up, Anarchist Tech Support? Oh, sweet. Audio confirmed. So the thing I was going to say... Snap, what was I going to say? Those dogs completely derailed me. Lily, you're a good dog. You're a good one. Because you only bark when you need to and when it's important. The rest of them, I don't know what's going on. Anyway, I thought my brother was home, but so the thing is like everyone's having to experiment with OBS a lot more now as a result of the Google Hangouts thing not working. Basically, imagine like the bandwidth or whatever for the Wi-Fi to the computer. It's supposed to, generally speaking, be stable enough that you can do something that's streaming. I'm going to close that door, Steve, because I'm live streaming right now. Unless you want to turn that off and just join me. Because I'm just going to watch the Bernie Sanders, Joe Rogan thing and scroll through comments and talk about how, and this is, I haven't said this yet, so I'm going to talk about how exciting it is that so many gamers got... I'm trying not to use the word triggered as often. They got, let's say, set off by the fact that both Joe Biden and Donald Trump, the two biggest doofuses in world history, both took a stab at video games within like 3 days of today, and then Bernie was on Joe Rogan today. And so I'm just like saying, this is like the launch pad, man. Everyone got politically engaged in like the worst of ways for Gamergate, and then they all went back to sleep to play games. And then this, they've been woken back up. Yang kind of did that a little bit. I'm hoping that they'll all see that Bernie, that you can't just throw a lot of money at something and make it happen. And that's without even going into Yang's policies. But the thing with Bernie is that he's got like over a million volunteers and growing. And the whole point is that it's a revolution and that he's, a revolution, whatever, obviously not. But he's the organizer in chief. And the fact that he's saying that, the fact that he's pushing that, that's really exciting. And the fact that so many people are probably coming into a sort of political awareness right now is also really exciting, because I know a lot of people, especially when I was doing stuff with the DSA, people say, and actually a lot of people on YouTube too, they say that they got politically engaged because of Bernie. I used to call it the Bernie to ContraPoints pipeline, right? And I don't know, like for me, I was already kind of like interested in that kind of stuff, but I don't think I was interested as much in American politics. I was more interested in like Why don't we organize society differently? You know, it was a lot less like what's going on in Congress. So anyway, I've talked enough. I'm going to play some Donkey Kong while watching Joe Rogan Bernie episode. So for those who don't know, well, everyone knows who Joe Rogan is, but for those who don't know, Bernie was on, I don't know when, but it got released today. This is the thumbnail I made for this, just like really fast whipped it together. I mean, I drew the Donkey Kong with all the colorful background and stuff like that on my computer like a couple months ago, so that was already there. But I just kind of slapped the rest of this together just for this event. So, oh, Lampe, what's up? Lampe, it's good to see you. Explaining the tests, yeah. So, do let me know if it gets to be too choppy. Let me know if the resolution is bad. This is a test stream. I think if it's bad, I'll keep going anyway, just because I kind of want to see what it's like over the course of 45 minutes at a minimum. And this Joe Rogan Experience episode with Bernie is like 2 hours shorter than normal. I'm kind of weirded out about that. I don't really know why it's so short. Normally people come on for 3 hours. Maybe Bernie just didn't have enough time. Maybe he was just like in the area, stopping in to say hello really quick, which, you know. Thanks, Rogan. Thanks, Rogan, for finally having somebody. Oh, well, he also had Cornel West, so got to give it up to him for that.
He's on a roll.
Yeah, Lampe, you do never see this shit live. So yeah, the thing is like people should be giving Joe Rogan encouragement in the comments to bring more people on, like Cornel West and Bernie Sanders. We need Noam Chomsky. Why do we not have Noam Chomsky on yet? Where's Richard Wolff? In the comments, y'all should give us some more people, but like obviously Angela Davis would be cool. Who else would be cool? Hit it up in the comments, but not just the comments in this live stream, also in the comments of the actual Rogan show, because you know, he could use that encouragement to have some better people on. So I'm gonna. This is how far I got. It's kind of weird. I'll just say that it's kind of a weird interview to me because it seems they both just seem tired. Like they both seem like they were probably just like on a really long hike and they already talked for 6 hours and then they got to the interview. So let's go. And I'm gonna speed it up 1.5. Don't listen to anything normal speed except for highly produced video essays. Like I don't speed up ContraPoints or I don't speed up, you know, I don't speed up American Johnson's, you know, more polished content, but stuff like this I do.
And we're live. Hello, Bernie.
How are you, Joe?
Wonderful. Pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
It's exciting to have you here, man. And it's obviously an exciting time for you. You know, presidential campaign is up in full swing. Do you get frustrated by the time constraints of the debates?
Absolutely. You shouldn't even call them a debate. What they are is a reality TV show in which you have to come up with a soundbite and all that stuff. It is the meaning. It's the meaning to the candidates, and it's the meaning to the American people. You can't explain the complexity of healthcare in America in 45 seconds. Nobody can.
But why is it still done that way? Have you tried to let's pull this thing. Bring it right there.
I think the DNC is in a difficult position. They have 20 plus candidates, and they want to give everybody a fair shot, which is the right thing to do. And then if you're going to have 10 candidates up on the stage, what do you do? But there are other ways that we've got to do it because the issues facing this country are so enormous and in some cases so complicated. Nobody in the world can honestly explain them in 45 seconds. And then what encourages people to do is to come up with sound bites and do absurd things. So if I yelled and screamed on the show, I took my clothes off, we get a lot of publicity, right?
Yeah.
If you give a thoughtful answer to a complicated question, it's not so sexy for the media.
Well, you don't even have a chance to give a thoughtful answer. Like Tulsi Gabbard went after Kamala Harris, and then Kamala Harris had about 12 seconds to reply to it. It was so ridiculous. To have something that's such an important issue. Did you or did you not put all those people in jail for marijuana? Did you laugh about it? Did this happen? Did that happen? All these different things. Was evidence withheld? Right. These are long conversations.
But it takes us to another issue. And that as a nation, we do a pretty bad job in analyzing and discussing the serious issues facing our country. And I hold the media to some degree responsible for that. You know, other countries, what they do is that, Joe, you want to run for president? I'll tell you what, your party in the general election, we're going to give you a certain amount of time, hours, on television. And you use those hours anyway. You want a 15-minute discourse. You remember Ross Perot?
Yes.
And people used to laugh at Ross Perot because he used to get up there with a chart and all this stuff. And the media made fun of him. But in fact, he tried in his own way to explain his point of view to the American people. And we need serious discussion on serious issues.
Well, he had because he was so rich, he had the ability to buy airtime on network television, which is pretty unprecedented. He just bought a chunk of airtime and then pled his case.
But you know what goes on in other countries? You don't have to buy that time. What the obligation is, if you are a network, you're going to make that time free and available to candidates.
Do you think that that's something that could be viable in America? I mean, could you convince CBS and NBC and ABC to go along with something like that?
No, you couldn't convince them. You'd have to pass legislation to make that happen.
But everyone's online today. I mean, the entire country is essentially getting email and Facebook and all that jazz. Like, why bother doing it in this particular medium that has an inherent time constraint?
Well, you're right. I mean, the internet has revolutionized politics. And in many ways, good ways. We use our social media, our email list, which is very large. Every day we're sending out stuff, and other candidates are doing it the same way. But television still has a very important role to play.
I'm sure it does, but I mean, the ability to discuss things in long form, like you can do online, like you can do right here, right now. Right. You can't get that on television.
Well, you could. I mean, if you had...
They would have to interrupt you every 15 minutes.
No. What I'm saying about is and what goes on in other countries. If I'm not mistaken, don't hold me to this. I think in the UK, you're a member of the Labour Party, you're a candidate. Mm-hmm. Here's 30 minutes of time, and you do with it as you want. You want to speak 30 minutes on healthcare, whatever it may be, you can do that.
Real. Yeah. And they don't interrupt with commercials?
No. That's the law that they have given. This is the candidate's opportunity to speak at length to the people of the country.
What are the misconceptions of you? Because here's the, if you go to the knee-jerk conservative reaction, you talk to people who are not interested in anyone that wants to be a democratic socialist, they hear the name Bernie Sanders. The negative implications are that you are somehow or another going to take their money, right? Is that annoying to you?
Yes, it is. Of course it is. And also that I'm Mr. Middle, I'm a dictator, I love dictatorships and all that stuff. And the truth is, Joe, that if you look at the issues that I campaign on and what I believe on, they are really not terribly radical. They exist in many countries all over the world. For example, we can start on healthcare if you'd like. Is the idea that healthcare is a human right, not a privilege, a radical idea?
I don't think it is.
It's not. And the truth is, we are the only major country on earth. Many people don't know this. We're the only major country on earth.
He just said he doesn't think it's a human right.
And yet we end up spending almost twice as much per capita on healthcare. The function, and you can argue with me if you want, but the function of the current healthcare system is not to provide quality care at all. It is to make tens of billions of dollars in profit for the drug companies and the insurance companies. That's the function. If you go to Canada, and I live 50 miles away from the Canadian border, you have major heart surgery. You're in the hospital for a month. Do you know what the bill is when you get out?
Zero.
You got it. You go to any doctor you want. You don't have to take out your wallet. And yet they guarantee health care to all of their people, and they spend one half of what we spend. That's kind of what I want to do. And I don't think that that's terribly radical. We have a program now, which everybody knows. It's called Medicare. It was started by Lyndon Johnson back in 1965. It is a popular program. All that I want to do over a 4-year period is to expand it. Today, eligibility age is 65. I want to take it out to 55, 45, 35, everybody over a 4-year period. That's about it. And I want to expand benefits to include dental care, hearing aids, and eyeglasses as well. That's about it. Not too radical.
That doesn't sound radical at all. Now, when you say that Canada spends less, obviously they have less people. You mean less per capita?
Yes, half per capita. Exactly, per capita. And the quality of care is as good or better. Do they have problems? Yeah, they have problems. Everybody has problems. But overall, the healthcare experts will tell you the quality of care there is as good or better than it is in our country.
So what's the hurdle?
Okay, I'll tell you exactly what the hurdle is. The hurdle is exactly the same thing as in every other aspect of our lives. It's the power of money. All right, listen to this. Over the last 20 years, the drug companies alone have spent $4.5 billion in 20 years on lobbying and campaign contributions. That's what we're up against. The knowledge, and I mark my words, within a short period of time, you will see TV ads, California, all over this country, demonizing Bernie Sanders. He wants to do this terrible thing to you. He wants to do that. They have unbelievable amounts of money, and politicians are frightened of that power. I'll give you one example. Back in 2016, I got involved here in a little way with an effort on the part of the nurses to control the cost of prescription drugs in California. You may recall that effort.
I do.
It was a ballot item in one state here in California. Do you know how much the drug companies alone spent to defeat that?
They spent $131 million
on one ballot item in one state. All right. Last year, the top 10 drug companies made $69 billion. A week ago, I went to Canada with a number of Americans who are dealing with diabetes. We bought insulin in Windsor, Ontario for 1/10 of the price, 10% of the price, same exact product being charged in America. So you got drug companies that are engaged in collusion and in price fixing, who are incredibly greedy. And the result is many elderly people, many working people simply cannot afford the medicine they need. It's unbelievable. And the reason for all of that stuff is we are the only country in the world that does not negotiate with the drug companies. They can charge you any price they want. And that has to do with the fact that we don't have a national health care program. Medicare is not negotiating, etc.
Is this something that can really be implemented inside of 4 years?
Yeah,
it seems like it's an enormous endeavor.
Well, I want you to think back, Joe. In 1965, you had Lyndon Johnson as president. And by the way, this idea of national health care, this has been talked about literally since Teddy Roosevelt. This is not a new concept. Healthcare is a human right. That's what Teddy Roosevelt was talking about. That's what FDR was talking about. Harry Truman was talking about it. Kennedy was talking about it. Kennedy got killed. Lyndon Johnson picked up the mantle. And their idea was, according to people in their administration, we'll start with the elderly who are most impacted by healthcare costs and sickness. We'll start, and they did in 1965, without the technology we have today. They implemented Medicare. 19 million people, elderly people, signed up in the first year. So if you could start a brand new program and have 19 million people sign up with a technology that is way, way behind where we are today, why can't we, over a 4-year period, simply expand that program? I don't think it's such a difficult operation.
So when you talk about the drug companies and the lobbyists and the enormous amount of money that they spend, is this Does this exist anywhere else other than the United States? Lobbyists on that level?
No, of course not. And the reason, in Canada, what you have is you have a national healthcare program and so forth. And they sit down and they negotiate with the drug companies. They have their own.
Okay, I just want to spoiler alert everybody.
To the drug companies. Of course, you can't trust
There's a part when Bernie practically yells at Joe Rogan. I'm going to make a remix of it.
You can walk in, if you have an illness, you could walk into the pharmacy tomorrow and the price has been doubled. And you say to the pharmacist, "What happened?" He said, "They just raised the prices. They can do it any day they want, any price they want."
Now, lobbyists are, in general, when people talk about lobbyists, it's an unattractive term. We think of it in terms of a negative. We don't think of, oh, thank God there's lobbyists. We think, wow, there's someone with enormous amounts of money using that money to gain influence on politicians, and it shapes regular people. It shapes our lives mostly in a negative way. This is the way most people look at it. I'm not saying it's correct. Why do we have that system in place? Like, why do we have lobbyists? Why is it legal for someone to spend exorbitant amounts of money to affect our civilization, to affect the way our culture works?
Now you're taking us into a whole new area.
Yeah.
All right, let's look. Let me detour and I'll come back.
Please do.
Today, in America, you got 3 people owning more wealth than the bottom half of the American society. You don't see that on television too much, do you?
No, you don't.
3 people. You got the top 1% owning more wealth than the bottom 92%. Listen to this. This is a statistic we recently saw. It came from the Federal Reserve. Over the last 30 years, the top 1% has seen a $21 trillion increase in their wealth. The bottom half of America has seen a $900 billion.
Ben says, hell yeah, don't we all want to yell at Joe?
What you have in America today
Yes,
is a relatively small number of incredibly wealthy people. And I deal with these guys every day. People say, oh, we talk about rich. You don't know what rich is, what multi-billion-dollar operations are. Incredible power over our society. And if you were the pharmaceutical industry, and last year 10 companies made $69 billion in profit, you're sitting around right now saying, all right, that's great. How do we do better next year? What strategy do we have? We have a lot of ads on. We're going to work with other... During the CNN debate that I participated in recently, in the debate, right in the middle of the debate, the drug companies and the insurance companies had an ad telling how bad Medicare for all would be. So they're smart guys. And they use their power over politicians. They use their power over the media. They spend billions of dollars on advertising on media to make sure that they make as much as they can in profit. But it's not any different with Wall Street. It's not any different with the fossil fuel industry or the prison industrial complex. These guys have wealth, they have power, and they could care less about the needs of working people in this country. And that's the dynamic of American politics right now. And in our campaign, look, we're taking them all on. I know it makes a lot of people uncomfortable. But we are taking on all of these entities and all of their wealth and all of their power. And that's what a political revolution is about.
So the real problem seems to be that they have this strategy of unlimited growth. Not that they're not providing medication that people need to save their lives. I mean,
so the real problem is they had the strategy of what's called capitalism.
Right. So there's good that they provide, but the business aspect of it is where the problem lies, right?
Right. Look, they have great researchers, but if you check how they even spend their money, they will tell you this, all of their money on research and development. We're tackling cancer, we're tackling diabetes, Alzheimer's. The truth is, of course they are. But the bulk of their money is going off into what we call Me Too drugs. They make modest changes in the drug, which really doesn't improve people's well-being in order to make profits. So the answer is yes. We need, obviously, vigorous research and development. And by the way, your tax dollars, all of our tax dollars often goes to that research, and we don't get the benefit of it in terms of lower prices.
So it's a business model issue.
Exactly.
It's a greed issue.
You got it.
And how would one stop that? When you're dealing with the kind of influence you talked about, $69
I hate it when they call it greed.
The resources they have. How would you stop that?
Well, that is kind of what we call the $64 question.
Yeah.
All right. And I'll tell you what I think. This is what I believe. If you think back on American history and you think about the real changes that have taken place in society, you think about the labor movement and working class people standing up and saying to their employers, we're not going to be treated like animals anymore. You can't hire and fire us. You can't work us 15 hours a day. We deserve dignity. And you think about the growth of the labor movement, millions of people beginning to stand together and fight. You think about the civil rights movement, And it wasn't just Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It was, again, millions of African Americans and their white allies say, we're going to end segregation and racism in this country. Think about the women's movement. 100 years ago, women in America didn't even have the right to vote. Think about the gay rights movement. Think about the environmental. The only way that change takes place is when ordinary people come together and stand up and fight and say that the status quo is not working. And that's what I believe, and that's what we're trying to do. So the message of our campaign is it's us, not me, because I can't do it alone. Let me be very honest with you. If I were elected president tomorrow, I can't do the things that I would like to do, that I'm campaigning on, unless millions of people were working with me to tell the corporate elite that they cannot get it all.
So how would that be implemented? Let's say you become president. You going to become president? What do you think?
I think we got a shot at it.
Got a shot. All right. President Bernie, what do you do? You get in there, what do you do?
Okay, first of all, you make it clear to the American people what your agenda is. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk about an agenda in more than 12 seconds. What does that mean? All right, we're going to fight for Medicare for all. We're going to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. We are going to deal with education in a profound way. Yes, a profound way, because I worry about what's going on in education today. Everybody knows that the ages of 0 through 4 are the most important years for human intellectual and emotional development, right? Every psychologist will tell you that. And yet we have a totally dysfunctional early childhood system. We pay our child care workers starvation wages, yet working class families cannot find affordable quality child care.
I love this point.
You got our public school systems all around this country, and many of them really being challenged right now. Teachers are underpaid, teachers are working 2 or 3 jobs. You got kids who can't afford to go to college. And here's something that is just unbelievable. Kids who have gone to college leaving school with $50,000, $100,000 in debt. Unbelievable. These are issues that we have to deal with, and I will deal with them. And we are going to substantially improve the quality of education in America. We're going to cancel student debt by imposing a tax on Wall Street speculation. All right, so you got to deal with education. You got to deal with climate change. The truth is that Donald Trump is dead wrong. Climate change is not a hoax. It is a very, very dangerous reality for our country and the rest of the world. Scientists tell us we have less than 12 years to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel, or there will be irreparable damage. Right? So those are, and healthcare, of course, for all. So those are some of the major issues: criminal justice, immigration reform. You lay it on the table. You say these are the issues that we are going to focus on. And you rally the American people around those issues. And you tell people like Mitch McConnell, who represents a very poor state in Kentucky, that Mitch, if you are going to oppose raising that minimum wage to at least $15 an hour, I will be in Kentucky as president of the United States. And we're going to have a rally. Because you're going to have to stop representing, and I hope, by the way, that Mitch McConnell is not the leader. I hope the Democrats can gain control over the Senate. But if he is, we'll put enormous pressure on him to do what the people want. Every idea, Joe, here's the bottom line of this. Every idea that I've just talked to you about is supported by a majority of the American people. These are not radical ideas.
Let's take these one step at a time, because you mentioned a lot of important things there. Let's go with the minimum wage thing. Now, the argument that I've heard about the minimum wage being raised to $15 an hour is that they're entry-level positions for high school kids, for people that are just getting their feet wet in the marketplace. They're learning how to work. They're making some money after school. That if you charge, or if businesses have to pay $15 an hour,
anybody who makes this argument is a fucking idiot.
People, that they won't be able to stay open.
Well, first of all, they will be competing against, if you're a business and I'm a business, and both of us have to raise our wages at the same level.
I mean, if you're just asking this because you haven't heard
spread across. That is what my conservative colleagues will tell you. The truth is, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, that while it certainly is true that young people do work at McDonald's and minimum wage jobs, a significant and majority of the workers are not kids. They are often, and I've met them at McDonald's.
You think Trump had to start at McDonald's?
Workers, who have children themselves. When we worked very hard to raise the minimum wage at Amazon and at Disney, we put pressure on both of those companies, and they did the right thing. And when you talk to the people at Amazon who got that raise, these are not kids. These are people in their 30s. These are ordinary adults who cannot make it on $12 or $13 an hour. So I think the argument that they're all kids is not really quite accurate.
Well, not even that they're all kids, but that if they are kids, what would you think about making a minimum wage for someone who's under 18 that's different from a minimum wage for someone who's a legal adult?
I'm not for that. I think we do it, and look, many of these young people have their own needs. I just talked to a young woman last night who is going to college, working full time, trying to take care of her family as well. So I think, look, the minimum wage has not been raised in 10 years. It is now $7.25.
No, Joe Rogan. They should just live at their parents' house.
Cost of housing, California, all over this country is rising fairly rapidly. People can't afford health care, can't afford college. I don't think it's asking our employers too much to pay at least $15 an hour minimum wage.
Now, I'm glad you brought up Amazon, because one of the things that always freaks me out is when I find out that enormous corporations that make billions of dollars have tax loopholes where they literally pay no money. How is that possible, and how do you stop that?
Well, it's the same thing as the drug companies. How is it possible that we pay 10 times more for insulin in this country and for other drugs than in Canada or countries around the world? And the answer is, it's power. So what is the goal of major corporations in America? It's to be deregulated as much as possible. So in some cases, they can pollute our water, our air, our environment. It's also not to pay any taxes. Trump campaign, as you recall, he said, my tax plan is not going to benefit the wealthy. It's going to benefit working people. Well, it turns out over 10 years, 83% of the benefit at the end of 10 years goes to the top 1%. That's what these guys do. I remember, I'm called the ranking member on the Budget Committee in the Senate. And some guy came forward representing, one of the big business organizations. And this is their agenda. Their agenda was to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and to do away with all corporate taxes. So what you have right now, that's what greed is about. They want it all. So as you indicated, you have a company like Amazon, owned by Jeff Bezos, who happens to be the wealthiest guy in America, worth about $150 billion. Amazon paid zero in federal income taxes. And it's not just them. Dozens of corporations paid nothing or very, very little. And on top of all of that, you got these guys able to stash all over the world trillions of dollars in the Cayman Islands, in Bermuda, in Luxembourg, and other tax havens.
How's it going in the chat, everybody? I'm pausing it just for a quick second. So my brother said I'm like 3.5 minutes behind. Steve, I paused it for a second. What's it like?
I mean, you could leave it playing and just come over and listen yourself. It's pretty good.
True.
I don't want to listen to it in here because you'll have some kind of weird feedback.
Yeah, all right. So for everybody who's seen previous attempts when I was trying to do a test, I'm in front of this house right now in my tiny house, and it can get an excellent signal, and then it just doesn't work for streaming OBS. And so really what this is all about is mainly, one, celebrating the fact that Rogan had Bernie on. For those who are like, I don't care, who cares who Rogan has on? Rogan's always got people on. Well, he's got the world's biggest, most popular podcast, and there wouldn't be a Yang Gang if it wasn't for the fact that Yang was on the Rogan show. So that was strategic. There also wouldn't be this contingent of people that are all about Tulsi if it wasn't for the fact that Tulsi had been on this show. So in terms of Bernie getting a lot of new interest and blood in the campaign, and blood, I mean, for real, it matters. We're talking feet stomping on pavement, people canvassing. He's got over 1 million volunteers. It doesn't matter if you like some of his policies or not. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What it matters is the people it is activating, and the people, and those people, how they're connecting with other people, and how they're all getting mobilized. Because that's how real changes occur. And so I see him as a figurehead and a rallying point. And, he's got apparently a reputation for integrity. And so people like him for that. And, in general, he speaks to my frustrations about a lot of things. It's like the frustrations I feel, only they've been alive longer, dealing with the same old bullshit for longer. And so at this part that we're getting up to, when he kind of snaps at Joe Rogan, it's because Rogan keeps asking the same questions over and over again, and they're kind of like dumb boy questions. But I mean, I know that Rogan's like asking what he thinks his audience needs to hear mostly. I think that's the case anyway. So, but it's kind of funny because he just keeps asking, how is this legal? How's it legal that people can buy out the government like this? Ben asked, so we're gonna watch the whole thing. I think so. Yeah, we're going to keep watching it at 1.5, which Anarchist Tech Support said was a good ratio speed up. So thanks for the feedback on that. Yeah, this is a pretty big deal for Anarchist Tech Support said. Bernie gets significant exposure. This is big for moving the country as leftward as possible at the moment. Yeah, I mean, this is the most plausible way of normalizing socialism, even if it's social democracy, and you want to argue it's not like real socialism. The point is like people need to be open to those aspects of communal life where cooperation can be fostered over competition, where people and planet can be put before profit. And I don't care how each individual human being interprets that. The point is to get people to not be so scared of it. The point is to get people comfortable with the idea that you can have a variety of perspectives that try to pursue such those kinds of goals. And so that's why it's exciting to me personally, and worth kind of elevating and getting in the comment sections of this video even, and just being like, thank you, Joe. You have a lot of class act, racist, transphobic assholes on your show. Who spew their hate under the guise of humor that's not funny to people unless they've really not learned a lot of really important things that people should know. But whatever, doesn't matter. I'm gonna get back to the video. I'm not gonna preach. Let's do it, y'all.
It's insane, and that has got to end.
Yeah, how is it legal to do that? Why is it legal?
Joe, it is legal because they make the laws.
Right.
All right?
That's it.
That is what you're touching now on the heart and soul of the tragedy of Bermuda and Luxembourg and other tax havens. That is insane, and that has got to end.
Yeah, how is it legal to do that? Why is it legal?
Joe, it is legal because they make the laws.
Right.
All right? That is what you're touching now on the heart and soul
it's
of the
legal
tragedy
because
of
they make the laws.
How does it happen that on issue after issue, the American people, the working class of this country, want something? Nobody pays any attention to it. But billionaires want something.
It's like the third time you've answered that question.
Corrupt political system. So right now, if you are the Koch brothers or some multi-billionaire, you say to the leadership of the Republican Party, in some cases to the Democratic Party, hey, guess what? We're prepared to put hundreds of millions of dollars into your campaign. Hundreds of millions of dollars coming from one or two people. And here is my agenda. I want tax breaks. I want a trade system which will enable me to shut down in this country and go to China or Mexico and pay people there $2 an hour. I want to be able to do more pollution because I don't like all of this, money I have to spend preventing pollution of the air or the water. That's what I want you to do. And by the way, I'm worried about the deficit, so you may as well cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. How many Americans actually believe that we should give tax breaks to billionaires and cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid? Very few. That is, talk to Mitch McConnell, get Mitch on the show. That is exactly what he believes.
Well, that's ridiculous, right? And it seems that if you just took away those tax breaks,
please don't get Mitch on the show.
That would come from those corporations having to pay their fair share would take care of a lot of the expenses of all these things that you're proposing.
Exactly.
Okay, let's talk about the education, because the idea of free education is a wonderful thing for people. I mean, the idea that you get out of college and you're in debt in an insane amount that you might have 10, 20 years where you have to pay it back. And I know many people that are in that
Joe, there are
situation.
people who are getting their Social Security checks garnished right now. It's not 10 or 20 years. In some cases, it's literally a lifetime.
Now, a lot of that is, I mean, it's got to in some way be preventable by what we're talking about here.
Absolutely. All right, and
Is that how you would pay for it? I mean, how would...
I'll tell you exactly how we'll pay for it. Okay. And we pay for every idea that we have, we pay for it. And we pay for it by understanding that today we have massive levels of income and wealth inequality. And we have, in many cases, the wealthy and large corporations paying nothing or very little in taxes. Here is the issue in terms of education. 40, 50 years ago, you were an average American working class person. You graduated high school. Especially if there was a union around, you can go out and get a job and make it into the middle class. You could own your own home. You could send your kids to school. You lived a pretty good life. You made it in the middle class. 40 or 50 years later, there's an explosion of technology. There's a growth in unfettered free trade. And it is clear now that most people, to make it into the middle class, are going to need a higher education. That's college, or maybe it's technical training in order to become a skilled worker. It is insane to me to deny working class people and lower income people the opportunity to get that education because the cost of college has soared. So all that I say is that 100 plus years ago, the American people said that we should have free public education. I went to a public school. My parents didn't pay a nickel. Went to kindergarten. I went through the 12th grade. Pretty good education in Brooklyn, New York. All that I'm saying is the world has changed. And a high school degree is not good enough anymore. So expand that concept through college. Now, guess
My
what?
biggest problem
50
with
years ago, you know how much the
Bernie's
University of
rhetoric
California, a
is-
very great university, cost in terms of tuition?
How much?
Virtually free.
What's it now?
I don't know, but it's pretty high. It is high. It's thousands and thousands of dollars. So you had great universities like the
It makes
University of
college
California,
about jobs.
City University of New York, state colleges
just
all over this
be
country,
human right
where
to
tuition
explore
was
your
virtually free.
options.
And then what happened? For a variety of political reasons, states and the federal government started cutting back on higher education and put more and more burden on the student with higher and higher tuition, which is where we are today. So all that I'm saying is in the year 2019, 2020, if our working class kids are going to go out and get the jobs that are out there, they need a higher education, which should be tuition free. In terms of the cancellation of debt, which is my view, you got 45 million people who are dealing with debt. I'll never forget this. This is where it really hit me. I was in Burlington, Vermont, and had a meeting on an issue, and a young woman comes up and she says, she's a doctor. She graduated medical school. She's very happy. She's practicing at a community health center, loves what she's doing. She said, Bern, I got to tell you though, I am $300,000 in debt for having gone to medical school. I couldn't believe it. I was in Iowa, a young woman, $400,000 in debt. This is not unusual for medical schools and dental schools. And, you know, ordinary people, $50,000, $100,000 for going to college or getting a master's degree. We promised these young people, we said, go to college, go out and get an education, you get decent paid jobs. Well, the answer is they have not been able to do that. So what we have proposed, in one piece of legislation, or two actually, is to make public colleges and universities tuition free, cancel all student debt in this country. That will cost $2.2 trillion, a lot of money, over a 10-year period. We do this through a tax on Wall Street speculation, which will bring in $2.4 trillion. We bailed out Wall Street 11 years ago, and by the way, these are...
Cancel all student loans. Do it. Do it. Take a fucking $60,000 weight off of my shoulders. Do it.
crooks on Wall Street who engaged in illegal behavior.
When I was in college, I had a conservative professor who was teaching political philosophy, and he was always fear-mongering about how despots come along and offer free forgiveness of debt. And I remember being like, that would be so fucking rad. Please.
Taxpayers against...
Steve says, yeah, ask Mitch how you can call a government by for the people when one guy voted for 800,000 people, can deny the will of 300 million people for universal background checks. Yeah, that's Mitch. And Lampay's like, no one would elect that today. Yeah. Oh, snap. What's up, River Ransom? It should be working right. There's not been any... Is it just you? I'm just showing the thumb right now just so people can see. It's so colorful and it's just fun. Okay, Steve says it's pretty clean, so I'll just keep going.
My vote, bail them out. If we can bail out Wall Street, you know what? We can cancel student debt and provide public colleges and universities tuition free.
When you say a tax on Wall Street speculation, what exactly do you mean?
It will be a tax on all of the every sale of a tax. People buy and sell stocks and bonds all of the time. We have a very modest tax on that. And by the way, it will have an impact on speculation by cutting back on the high frequency trading, which we now see.
So you would just, there's no current tax on this?
Correct.
So you would put a small amount and that would do the job? That would
raise more than enough money. It's a very small tax. It
When you
exists.
say small, how much?
It depends on the nature of the transaction, but it's less than 1/2%.
Really?
Yeah.
And that would
because
cover...
because the amount of stocks being sold, bought and sold. And this is not, again, a new idea. It's being done in countries all over the world.
What about, here's one of the darkest things about student loans, is that if you go bankrupt, it doesn't matter. You still owe that. And that's kind of crazy. I mean, if you have like a serious medical issue, if you're held up, whatever happens to you that's awful, you go bankrupt, most of those things are resolved, but not student loans.
Right. I mean, again, this talks and that has to do with bankruptcy law, which was passed against my vote. And while you're on bankruptcy, and I should have mentioned this before, when you talk about the healthcare system, 500,000 Americans every single year go bankrupt because of medical bills that they can't pay. But you're right, with student, I talked to this guy in Nevada, I'll never forget it. The guy said, Bernie, I'm over the guy's in his 50s. And he said, I've been paying off my student debt for years. I'm going nowhere because the interest rates are high. And I fear very much, which is the case, that they will start garnishing, taking away my Social Security checks, taking money away from me. So people are carrying this burden. The result is that they can't, in many cases, get married and have kids. They certainly can't buy a home. They can't buy a car. They are really crushed by this debt. And what was their crime? What did they do? They try to get higher education. That's pretty crazy.
And a lot of them, when they do this higher education, they're 18 years old. Imagine making a decision when your brain isn't even fully formed. It's going to affect you for the rest of your life.
You got it. Yeah, exactly right. And you talk to these kids. How much debt do you owe? What kind of interest rate you pay? Gee, I really don't know. They just told me to sign up here. Sorry.
Now, right now, we are a week, not even a week out, just a few days away from 2 mass shootings in a row. And whenever these things happen, there's all these people that want action, but nobody knows exactly what to do. There's calls for gun control. There's calls for mental health reform. There's calls for, what, if anything, can be done to stop these things from happening? And how have you sat down and tried to come up with some sort of a solution? And is there a solution?
Look, I would be lying to you if I told you I had a magical answer. I don't. And this is such a horrific situation. We were in, we had a town meeting. We were in Nevada, actually, in Las Vegas, when El Paso happened. And we did a town meeting, and I said, let's take a moment of silence to remember the victims and pray for the survivors. Literally, the next day, in another part of Las Vegas, I have to do it again. And I said, I can't believe that just yesterday we did this, and I have to do it again. This is, I don't know what the words, my friend Beto O'Rourke would say, you don't know what words, what can you say? It happens again and again. Who can imagine some lunatic walking into a school or a mall or just on a nightclub area, taking out an assault weapon and shooting?
Sometimes my buttons just don't work.
That we almost become to accept this as a normal part of American life is incredible. Is just totally demoralizing. All right, so here's what I think. There's no magical answer, but let me tell you what I think. First of all, this is the reality. The reality is that today, as we speak, there are approximately 400 million guns in America today. We have more guns than we have people. We have between 5 to 10 million assault weapons. And an assault weapon, as you know, is a military-style weapon designed to kill human beings kind of rapidly. So and then on top of that, we have, again, nothing to be proud of, but we have a number of mentally unstable people, for whatever reason, are walking the streets, they're suicidal, they're homicidal. And that's the mix that we have. I think the answer is, and I'm not the guy to invent all these ideas, but here's some of what we have to do. First of all, if you want to own a gun in America, we have got to know that you are a stable person, and that means that we need to expand the background checks that currently exist. Okay, so we've got to know: did you beat up your wife? Have you committed crimes? Et cetera, et cetera. What is the state of your mental health? Number 2, we got to make that universal. Number 2, right now, there is a background check if you walk into a gun show, into a gun shop, but you can buy guns in various states at a gun show, and you don't have to do any of that. So if you and I go to a gun show, you sell me a gun, I don't have to, I don't have to do that. Third of all, I can today legally walk into a gun show, pass the background check, and buy a dozen guns, walk out and sell them to criminal elements who will use them for bad things. So I think those are issues that most Americans believe we have got to deal with, and we can. Fourthly, I happen to believe, and I believe this for 30 years, that we should not be selling or distributing assault weapons in this country. They are weapons of mass destruction in a sense. They kill people rapidly, as we saw. And thank God, by the way, when we talk about both Dayton and El Paso, thank God, cops were there very, very quickly and did an incredible job. Because if that guy had walked into the nightclub, there could have been dozens and dozens more people killed within a few minutes' time. I happen to believe, that we should not be selling or distributing assault weapons in this country. That's my view, period. So I believe in a ban on assault weapons. And I think we have got to begin thinking about when we have 5 to 10 million.
Ben Schulman says Bo of the Fifth Column had a really good video on guns. Yeah, and he has several of these good videos on guns. Yeah. So, actually, I just shared that today, I think. So that was shared, I think, in my community function on YouTube. So some people hopefully saw that. Bo's got a bunch of arguments about why this whole discourse between the Republicans and the Democrats right now regarding guns is just, it's all red herrings. It's all symbolic gestures people are trying to get done. And none of it really addresses the systemic issues. None of it, it's all Band-Aid stuff, which is so typical of American politics.
Assault weapons, which is more than the U.S. military has. We have to think about a strong licensing procedure in terms of who owns these assault weapons. So that's some of what I think. And there are many other things, but those are some of the ideas that are out there.
Now, the legal gun owners who are law-abiding citizens who would never in a million years think about going around shooting people, but they love guns. They hear this kind of stuff about like banning assault rifles, banning assault weapons. They don't even like the term assault weapons, right? They like to refer to them as their individual names for whatever they are. These people feel like this is an inexorable part of being an American, that you should be able to own a gun. It's written into our Bill of Rights. It's written into the way this country was founded. It's the Second Amendment. What do you say to those people that don't want to give up their guns, but they wouldn't do, and they want to protect themselves? They feel like these guns are viable options to protect themselves from criminals.
I understand that. And Joe, you may know I'm a senator from the state of Vermont. And the state of Vermont is one of the most rural states in America. Every fall, you got thousands and thousands of people out in the woods hunting. And it's something that's part of our tradition. I believe in it. I believe in the Second Amendment. But all that I ask of the gun owners, and you're absolutely right, 99.9% of the gun owners would never in a million billion years think of doing these horrible things. But in the moment that we are living in, I think that we're all going to have to make some concessions to the reality of what is going on, and that is that there is a small number of, call them what you want, brave people who are prepared to do that. In Australia, you remember that terrible, New Zealand, I'm sorry, the terrible shooting at the mosque, and they moved pretty quickly in an aggressive way. So, I wish I can say in the best of all possible worlds, you can own any weapon you want and so forth and so on. We're not living in the best of all possible worlds. We're living in a world where we're shocked every day by horror. So.
I agree we are living in a terrible situation. I mean, there's hundreds of mass shootings a year now, which is insane. And if you look at the number in comparison to the rest of the world, it's crazy. Like a big one in another country is like 3 mass shootings in a year. We had more than 270. It's crazy. But how would you implement something like this?
Well, the idea of banning assault weapons has been done. In 1994, we banned assault weapons. I believe it was for 10 years. That ban was undone by a Republican majority. And it didn't, I'm not suggesting, by the way, that anything here, that if we banned assault weapons tomorrow, that it would radically change everything. But we have got to do the best that we can do. And again, I prefaced my remarks by telling you I don't have a magical solution. You've got hundreds of millions of guns out there. You have people who should not be owning these guns, who get set off by God knows what, and do terrible things. All we can do is the best that we can do. But to say
set off by God knows what, mostly your show, Rogan, and the guests you have on.
That bothers me, in addition to the horror of seeing people lying on the street dead, is what this is doing to the children of this country, and I think we underestimate that. I have 7 grandchildren. And for them and for kids all over this country, you're going to see the falls coming, kids coming back to school. You're going to see in schools all over America drills. All right, this is what you do if somebody walks into the school. All right, you're going to hide under here. You go over there. Kids, a couple of months ago, I was in Iowa. This guy is about 6'2", big guy, probably a football player. And he says, Senator Sanders, I got to tell you that the young people in my school are increasingly frightened, terrified about what could happen in the school. Think about what the trauma of what this gun violence is doing. So I think we're all, as Americans, there ain't no easy answers here, but I think we're all going to have to come together and figure this one out and do the best that we can.
Now, would that mean forcibly removing these guns from people's homes?
I don't think you're going to have the FBI knocking on somebody's doors and taking it. That's not what we do in America.
But if we have 400 million guns already out there, and they're building more every year. Right now, as we speak, gun manufacturers are making more guns. This is happening right now. So if those guns already exist, there's more than enough.
Oh, yeah.
How would you stop?
Well, again, I think, look, I do think there should be a ban on assault weapons. So that means that manufacturers would not be able to produce or sell those weapons.
To American citizens,
yes.
But not to the military, obviously.
Right, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and your point is well taken. If you got 400 million guns out there, So I think there are approaches. No one has any magical solution, but I'll tell you something else that I didn't mention, and that is the role of gun manufacturers. Is that if you are a gun manufacturer and you are selling a hell of a lot of guns to a gun store in an area which normally you would not think. I mean, these guys know, what cities buy, what towns buy, how many guns. And if suddenly there is a tremendous demand, you got to be thinking, why is this gun store buying so many guns? Doesn't reflect the population in the area. You got to deal with that issue, but the gun owners have to take some responsibility.
Besides the guns.
The gun manufacturers, I'm sorry.
Right. Besides the guns and the gun manufacturers, the other gigantic issue is mental health. Yeah. The only way any of this ever happens is someone has to be insanely mentally depraved. That's the only way. And many of them are medicated. And many of them are on pharmaceutical drugs, and they have been since they were children, including amphetamines like Adderall and Prozac and all this different stuff that has varied effects on the human brain. What could be done? What would you done to analyze this, to find out what the cause and effect are, and to try to figure out what role and how much these drugs are responsible?
Okay, well, 2 things. Let me respond first by saying it goes without saying that we have a mental health crisis in America before we even talk about drugs. And for whatever reason, there are a whole lot of people, and the nature of our healthcare system, getting back to healthcare, is I just talked to a woman literally last night, and we had a town meeting, and she said, this is unbelievable. She said, Bernie, I was in Las Vegas when the terrible shooting took place, okay? And now and I can understand this perfectly. I'm seeing Dayton and I'm watching television El Paso, and I'm getting a PTSD reaction, all right? And that's totally if you were in a place where people were shot down, and I'm trying to get counseling, I can't find it. I remember a woman called up my office in Burlington, Vermont, and she said, I'm worried about my husband my brother was his brother, what he might do to himself or somebody else. We're looking for mental health counseling. We can't find something that we can afford. So we need, above and beyond gun violence, we need, and this is why I believe in Medicare for all. Mental health is healthcare. You break your arm, that's a health issue. That's a medical issue. Mental health is a medical issue. And we have got to make mental health counseling available to all people in this country when they need it, not 6 months from now, at a price they can afford. And under Medicare for all, it would be free. So that's number one. Number two, your point about studying the impact of drugs on people's behavior and possibly resulting in violence absolutely deserves to be studied. We should be studying the impact of drugs. In my view, this is a layman's view, not a psychiatrist. I worry very much that we are over-medicating kids in schools. We have this deficient issue. Kids are running around and they're active. When I was a kid, people used to run around and they were active. Yes. They weren't drugged up. So I worry about that whole business. But your point is well taken. I think we need to study this issue and make sure that these drugs, in fact, are not causing kinds of reactions that we will regret later.
Now, on the subject of drugs, marijuana is obviously a big issue in this country, and we've seen many states make it recreational, including this one. What do you think could be done, and what should be done to have this across the board, especially federally? There's a guy that I have on the podcast coming up soon. His name's John Norris, and he wrote a book on the cartels growing marijuana illegally all over this country and selling it, particularly in California now because it's a misdemeanor, because it's legal recreationally, and selling it with all sorts of horrible pesticides on it, all sorts of very, in fact, deadly chemicals. All of this because it's not federally legal, because we can't have sanctioned, licensed companies doing an ethical job of growing something that any responsible, law-abiding person should be able to consume.
Okay. Let me say this. When I ran for president for the Democratic nomination in 2016, I talked about a broken criminal justice system, which ends up having, in the United States, more people in jail than any other country. We have more people in jail than China does, which is a communist authoritarian country. And what I called for then and I call for now is the legalization of marijuana in America. Right now, you have a federal law. It's called the Controlled Substance Act. Here's heroin, here's marijuana. They're at the same level. That is insane. Heroin is a killer drug. You can argue the pluses and minuses of marijuana, but marijuana ain't heroin. So we have to end that, and that's what I will do. As President of the United States, I believe we can do that through executive order, and I will do that. Second of all, what we have now is number of things. I'm very proud. I talked about during 2016. It seemed kind of radical. The need to legalize and decriminalize marijuana, a very radical idea. 4 years ago, it was spreading all over the country. And by the way, it blows my mind to drive through Nevada. I think you're even in California. You see signs. Corporations buy our marijuana.
Yeah.
And 4 years ago, people getting arrested for doing that, right? Their lives being destroyed.
Well, particularly in Nevada, there was life sentences given out in the 70s.
Can you believe that? And now you have corporations selling the damn product that people went to jail for. So I think ultimately, we've got to legalize marijuana. And what's good news, in a sense, is some communities, some cities are expunging the records. So if you were arrested, have a criminal record for selling marijuana, that is being expunged, and that is the right thing to do. We can argue about the pluses and minuses. I'm not a great fan of drugs. Other people, I smoked marijuana a couple of times. Didn't do much for me. Other people, I guess, have different.
Just a couple of times?
That's right, true.
It didn't do much for you?
Yeah, maybe
cough.
Where
are you getting it?
I was in Vermont.
No, that's the problem.
Maybe.
He'll do something for you.
Well, maybe cough a whole lot. All right, but I got other people who have different experiences.
For sure.
Maybe that's why he was coughing on the Rogan show.
The other problem is, of course, with illegal drugs comes, you get this horrible cycle, particularly in inner cities, where you have people that are incarcerated for illegal drugs. Illegal drugs seem to be the only way out. The hard drugs, when you're talking about cocaine and all these other drugs, how does one stop that? And would you ever consider legalizing all drugs or decriminalizing all drugs?
Not at this point, no, I wouldn't. But you're touching on a real tragedy.
Yes.
And when we talk about criminal justice in America, we have over 2 million people in jail. They are disproportionately African American, Latino, and Native American. And here's what I think. I think in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, what we have got to do, instead of building more jails and locking up more people, we really do have to invest in our young people, especially young people in distressed communities. What does that mean? If we can, and we can do this with the proper amount of resources, make sure the kids are not dropping out of school. If you drop out of school today, say you drop out in your second, third year of high school, you don't have an education, you don't have any job skills, what are you going to do with your life? And the answer is you may well do drugs, or you'll get in trouble, self-destructive activity or destructive activity, and end up in jail. It makes so much more sense from a humane perspective, protecting our people, as well as a financial situation. We're spending $80 billion a year to invest in these kids. What does it mean? It means making sure they get the education that they need, paying attention, having good schools, making sure that they get the jobs that are out there, doing job training. There was a principal in a school in southern Vermont, I'll never forget what she said. It was a working class school. And she said, Bernie, I love these kids. I am not going to let them drop out. And she had a mentoring program, just watching the kids who are mostly at risk, so that they would not end up going through the cracks and getting into trouble. That's what we should be doing as a nation. And when we do that, we invest in the kids, we get them jobs, we get them education. The likelihood of them falling into bad ways is significantly reduced.
All those things sound great. The uncomfortable reality about drugs, though, is that when drugs are illegal, criminals sell them. And there's obviously a need for drugs in terms of, not necessarily a need, but a demand for drugs. There's a demand for drugs in this country that's absolutely fueling Mexican cartels and illegal drug runners inside this country. I mean, there's a lot of that. How do you curb that if drugs are illegal?
Well,
how do you curb that if drugs are illegal? The thing I want to say really quick is that I am just really stoked about the conversation that's going on in the live chat right now. So I wanted to read off some of that really quick, take a break from Rogan, take a break from this terrible game that I've been playing. I can't even get past the first level. Ugh. That's what happens after you set a high score. It's just like you screwed. But anyway, let's see. So people are talking about who the VP would be if Bernie was running and who's the best choice. And I think it was River Ransom had said that Williamson, unironically, would be better than some others. And I'm like, agreeing because she could really game the algorithm. Or maybe that's just because I follow left meme YouTube. but Left Meme YouTube definitely has a lot of fun with her, But I think that, CNN would probably just eat it up. Like everything she says, they would be putting it on blast. And, it would be this constant juxtaposition of her talking about love and Trump saying racist stuff. And then Bernie being like, Bernie. So yeah, it could be a real win. The righteous anger and the cool, soothing crystal org queen. Yeah. So let's see. Steve Still, Bernie, Tulsi, 2020. Looking at established relationships. Warren, this is Anarchist Tech Support, says Warren co-authors legislation with Bernie, but has also paid dues within the party, especially in 2016, by endorsing Hillary. Yeah, still got some hard feelings about that one. River Ransom, Ben Schulman, I agree. Yeah. Actually, I'm glad you brought that back up, River, because Ben mentioned it's capitalist alienation in their opinion, in his opinion, that causes these mentally ill issues. And seriously, how many forms of alienation and precarity that are perpetuated specifically by capitalism, that are unique to capitalism, that aren't necessarily as proliferated within the context of other societies, historically speaking? Marx talks about at least 4 kinds of alienation under capitalism, but there's more than that, So, that's the topic for a future video. I definitely have to do a video soon on that. And by the way, speaking of capitalism, I have a video essay, one of the priceless essays, coming out tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, which would be 3:30 Pacific Daylight Time. Eastern time, 3:30. Yeah, Eastern time. So make sure to join for the premiere for that if you can. It's going to be exciting. A couple of great YouTubers were able to read quotes for it. It's about platform capitalism and why the future of entertainment is basically doomed. Okay. I'm going to keep playing this and then keep reading in the chat and then come back to reading this stuff out loud.
You're raising a deep question.
Yes.
So the question essentially that you're asking is, what is the cause of the opioid epidemic? Yes?
That's one aspect of it, but the opioid epidemic is interesting because there's so much of it that's coming legally.
Right.
That's not the drug cartels, that's the pharmaceutical industry.
You're right, but the heroin is illegal.
Yes.
All right. Now you're asking, this is a very, very deep question, which we don't talk about terribly much. Why is it that so many of our people are turning to drugs, to alcohol, by the way? And I don't mean a drink a night, but I mean serious alcohol problems, and tragically to suicide. We now have, for the last 3 years, something that is ahistorical, never happened before in modern history, and that is our life expectancy is actually going down. And this is hitting all over the country, but it's especially hitting rural areas. And what the doctors are saying is that these are diseases of despair. Despair. So you're in West Virginia, you're in rural Ohio, or any place, Vermont, any place. And the job you used to have, earning a decent living, is now in China. Your kid can't afford to go to college, maybe you can't afford healthcare. You got nothing to look forward to. Under that scenario, alcohol becomes a way out. And the worst case, it's suicide. So I think what we're talking about is, why is this happening? It's often in rural areas, in urban as well. And how can we reestablish hope and optimism in the American people? And that gets back to a whole lot of other issues. It means if people have healthcare as a right, that will certainly play a role in this thing, that walk into the doctor when they need. But it also means that people need decent jobs to pay them a living wage. That means we have to rebuild rural America. We have to rebuild the depressed communities in urban America. It means that we have to have a great educational system. And people say, oh, that's great, Bernie, that's utopian. It is not utopian. This is something that in the wealthiest country in the history of the world we can afford, and we should be doing rather than creating a situation where Amazon pays 0 in federal income taxes. So to answer your question, it's a deep question. And again, I'm not here to tell you I have all the answers. But there are a lot of people out there who have basically given up hope. And for those people, I guess drugs is the alternative.
So what you're saying essentially is that if we can do something to mitigate despair, then we'll do something to at least stop some of the demand for these illegal
I believe
drugs.
that is the case. Look, if I am optimistic, if I'm excited about going to work tomorrow and I'm seeing my kid doing great in school, and when I get sick, I can go to the doctor's office. I have a sense of community. My downtown is not all boarded up because businesses have left, but we have a community. Yeah, the strong likelihood is there will be less diseases of despair and drugs than we currently see.
Now, when we're talking about impoverished communities and chronically, when you're talking about cities like Baltimore or parts of Chicago and Detroit that have just been in a terrible state of despair for long periods of time, it doesn't seem like there's a way out. The people that are born there, the people that live there, they live in this state of despair. What can be done to resolve all of these terribly impoverished communities and bring them up to a standard where these kids that grow up there, they feel like there is an out, that they do have an opportunity? And why is this not addressed? When we talk about making America great, wouldn't fixing the worst parts of the country be the primary concern? The less people that grow up in a terribly disadvantageous position from birth. Wouldn't that be an important thing? And what can you do to resolve that?
Well, Joe, I think you said it better than I can. I think you're right. When we talk about what it means to live in a great society, a great nation, a nation that we're proud of, I'm afraid there are some people who have incredible wealth and power who say, you know what's great? Is that we're seeing a growth in the number of billionaires in America. Isn't that terrific? And we got one guy who's worth $155 billion. How great? Oh, by the way, we're building more nuclear weapons. And we're spending $750 billion a year on the military. Isn't that extraordinary? And by the way, you see the yacht that billionaire has? It's 3 miles long. Isn't that great? Your point is that we have to, I think as I understand what you're saying, we have to redefine what being a great nation is about. We are not a great nation when we have 40 million people living in poverty and in despair. We're not a great nation when we have massive levels of income and wealth inequality when 87 million people can afford to go to a doctor today. So to answer your question, I think that as
not a great nation
we have
or
got
caging
to focus
children.
a great deal of attention on those distressed
Or anybody.
communities. Often they're African American, often they're Latino, often they are
Especially
rural
when they're
white
not
communities.
illegal.
And that means making sure that the kids, they get the quality education that they deserve, making sure that we're creating good paying jobs in those communities. I voted against NAFTA, permanent normal trade relations with China and other trade agreements, because I knew that those agreements were written by corporate America with the goal of shutting down plants in this country and moving abroad. And the result of that has been the loss of millions of good paying jobs and the complete destruction of communities all across this country, in the South and all across this country. So we have got to rebuild those communities. We have got to bring high-tech jobs, not just to Silicon Valley, but to rural America. Again, I don't have magical answers, but the goal is we will not, under a Sanders administration, turn our backs on distressed communities. We will rebuild those communities. We will build the millions of units of affordable housing that we need. Now think about what it means to a community now where people are living in terrible housing or housing they cannot afford. When we put young people to work, rebuilding their own communities, will that become an indication of hope and optimism? I think it will.
We're talking about so many deeply important issues, and all of them that will be under the control, or at least the direction, of the one person who winds up becoming the president of the United States. Is it an impossible job? I mean, it seems like being the president, you are managing so many different aspects of our economy, our culture, our safety, our environment, international communication, and it's so in depth. How does one person do a job like that?
Well, one person doesn't do it. And you certainly don't do it by tweeting every other day, major policy issues.
I think he tweets a lot more than every other day.
What you do, and this is the way any saint.
Okay, there's a lot of joking around in the chat about Marianne Williamson right now. And I just have to say, what if Rogan had her on and didn't try to treat her like she was an idiot who was like walking into a setup like how Ruben did, right? And what if instead he talked to her like she is a real human being? I don't know. That could be fun. But Spangler's convinced that Russell Brand and Williamson are both aliens. I don't usually judge people on their appearances, and well, I guess I kind of do. Everyone does, but you're right. They do kind of come off like aliens. River Ransom says, I'm convinced Williamson is a cultural Marxist. CIA shill too. Yeah, while we're at it, why don't we talk about conspiracy? No, let's not. Maybe is she a CIA shell? Is anyone like what? Do tell us more. I don't know enough about Marianne Williamson. Honestly, I hear she really does say some crazy stuff in her older books, but I just like her from the Rubin, interview. That's really it. I just, and also just because of like her meme value. And also, like, I think she might be right about the way to talk to Trump. All of these people with all of their, Trump's so racist, and like they feel the need to disavow it every time they talk, up there on the stage. And she's just like, I'm not here to talk about him. I'm going to talk to the people. And I'm like, that's just a thing I like. It doesn't mean I like her policies or whatever. But as far as like the way to handle it, I think it's good. So, Spangler, you said, I hope you realize the sarcasm. I couldn't read the sarcasm because I don't have a good enough read on you as a human being or as a internet personality for that matter. So, I mean, if you thought it was the deep state, you're fine. I wasn't. I hope I didn't come across too judgy. Conspiracy theory is just a few steps away from real theory. So, more than a few steps. The way some people use it, maybe only a couple of steps. And Bruno Latour has a whole essay on this. Subject for another video. Lampe says, I'm trying to get a conspiracy expert for an interview like the one we just did. Great idea. Lampe, I look forward to doing something with you soon. Let's plan a stream very soon. Maybe do it together. I'll be coming through Boise at some point soon, and we can maybe just do it together. Anyway, all right, going back to this. We're almost done. We're going to finish it out.
it's so in depth. How does one person do a job like that?
Well, one person doesn't do it. And you certainly don't do it by tweeting every other day, major policy issues.
I think he tweets a lot more than every other day.
What you do, and this is the way any sane president operates, is you need to be working with the smartest men and women from all walks of life who understand these issues. Every issue we have touched on, Joe, is enormously complicated. I can send out a 20-word tweet on it, but that doesn't solve it. So unlike Trump, we will bring together the best and most knowledgeable people in this country to address the housing crisis, to address the issue of these diseases of despair. We didn't even touch on climate change, and then the future of the planet. How do we lead the world in transforming our energy system and creating the kind of jobs that we need? How do we revitalize American democracy so that instead of suppressing the vote, we're getting more young people involved in the political process? So to answer your question, it is not a one-person job. And anyone who thinks it is dead wrong. You need the help of a very strong administration that knows the issues, that comes from the ranks of the working class. And this is the promise I will make. My administration, unlike Trump's, is not going to be filled with billionaires who's, basically very often greedy type people. It is going to be filled with the best people, often from the working class itself, from the trade union movement, people who are going to help us create policies that work for workers and not just the billionaire class.
Now, we're getting to the end of your hour here. So climate change is obviously an enormous issue for our country and for the world. What could be done? And what do you think you can do as president that can somehow or another slow down this process?
Well, first of all, we have to have a president who, unlike Trump, believes in science, and I do. And what the scientists are telling us, as I mentioned earlier, is that we have fewer than 12 years to transform our energy system, or else there will be irreparable damage done, not only to our country, but to the world. Now, climate change is not just an American issue. So we could do tomorrow, do all the right things, but if China and Russia and India and the rest of Brazil and Africa does not do the right thing, we're not going to make the progress we need. So here is what we have to do, in my view. Number one, we have to tell the fossil fuel industry that their short-term profits, and they make a whole lot of money, their short-term profits are not more important than the future of this planet. I don't think that's a hard sell to make. You cannot keep producing a product which is destroying the planet in the United States and around the world.
So by saying that, you're saying we would have to move consciously away from fossil fuels.
No ifs, buts, and maybes.
And if we do that, how do you tell the fossil fuel companies? Do you tell them you can't sell fossil fuels anymore?
There are a variety of ways to do that, but that is the bottom line. And by the way, in the midst of that, we do what we call is a just transition. The guy out on the oil rig today simply wants to feed his family. The coal miners today want to feed their families. And we're not going to leave them. I'm a pro-worker. I have probably the strongest pro-worker record of any member of the Congress. So it is not my intention to throw these guys and women out on the street and ignore the pain that they will go through. We are proposing billions of dollars to rebuild those communities and make sure that those guys and women get new jobs. So we're not just discarding people in the fossil fuel industry, but ultimately the product that they are producing, which is now carbon emissions, is destroying the planet. So we have to move away from fossil fuel in a very bold way into energy efficiency. Right now, in my own state of Vermont and all over this country, there are buildings which are incredibly wasteful. We don't have the windows, we don't have the insulation, we don't have the roofing, the doors that we need to keep the buildings warm in the winter and cool in the summer. And we can create just an incredible number of jobs just retrofitting our buildings. Second of all, we need to move very aggressively to sustainable energies like wind and solar. In California, you're doing a good job with wind. Iowa's doing a good job. Texas doing a good job. We got to do much more. Solar, there is incredible potential out there. Price of solar has dropped in recent years. And we have got to not only transform the energy system in our own country, we got to lead the world in working with Russia and China. Because in this issue, we are in it together. And here's my dream. This may be a utopian dream. The world right now is spending $1.5 trillion on weapons of destruction designed to kill each other. And maybe, just maybe, if we had a kind of leader, and I hope to be that leader, who says to the world, instead of spending $1.5 trillion killing each other, maybe we use those resources to transform the global energy system and save the planet for our kids and our grandchildren. That's the goal that I have.
Well, these ideas sound great, but in the competitive environment of global politics, how would you convince Russia or China or any of these countries to do something that would put them in some sort of a competitive disadvantage?
Well, and the answer is, Joe, if we do not do that, in 50, 100 years, everybody's going to be at a terrible disadvantage. And look, I'm not telling you that tomorrow it's going to happen. But you got to make the case. These people, Putin is a dictator. I dislike him intensely. Xi in China, very authoritarian, and so on, but they're not crazy people. And presumably they have concern about their kids and their grandchildren.
Oh my God, I wish he could have fucking said this. The reason I just asked in the chat, has anyone seen the Third Industrial Revolution, is because, listen, this idea that that China is somehow not trying to become energy efficient is ridiculous. China and Germany are, if I'm not wrong, China and Germany are leading on this. Let's see. I mean, so yeah, they are the most major producer of emissions, but at the same time, that's because they're producing Hannah Montana bobbleheads for the U.S., among other garbage. So let's see. I'm going to play a trailer for the Third Industrial Revolution for those who haven't seen it. It's not like it's Jeremy Rifkin is a sort of, so he's an economist. It's an advisor to President Xi in China and to Angela Merkel in Germany, both of whom are like, we're going to do this third industrial revolution. I think he's about to say that. The reason it's worthwhile talking about is because when you have someone like Bernie who's asked, how are you going to do something like this cooperatively with China and Russia? It's like, excuse me, both of those countries have at least expressed, values that we can speak to. And there's been a lot of times historically when they were making pushes towards non-competitive ways of being, and the U.S. did everything in its power to interfere with that. And so, yeah, having some people who are like, yeah, let's actually work together, it maybe not a bad thing. So I'm going to go ahead and play that really quick, though. Where's the screen? Experiment with. What about this one? Well, that's just me again. Okay. This is Jeremy Rifkin. Here we go. It's a great documentary. He's not a Marxist. He's not a Keynesian. He's not a I don't know what he is. I haven't read his books. But the documentary itself, I think it's good for galvanizing people who are sort of disenfranchised by the establishment, but who still want to see change within the system, but still radical change that would literally overhaul everything. We're talking, I mean, it's essentially a move towards a sharing economy. So call it what you want to call it, but it's obviously a move in a better direction. And if I was part of a socialist party and the opposition was this guy and his crew, I think that'd be pretty cool. So here we go.
I'm going to share with you a dirty little secret in economics that economists don't like to talk about. Economics is governed by the same laws that govern the universe, the solar system, the biosphere on Earth, and every single thing you and I do in our economic life while we're here on this planet. Not a single business school in the world requires that you learn about the first and second laws of thermodynamics that govern economic activity. How are you going to grow an economy when you're plugged into an infrastructure and that infrastructure peaked in its productivity years ago? Now, this industrial era has given rise to a much more profound crisis. We are in real-time climate change. We need a new economic vision. We need a third industrial revolution. We're going to get a roadmap that'll allow us to navigate a new journey, to completely transform the way we handle life on Earth. It changes the way we think about life. It changes our habitats. It actually even changes consciousness and governance. Coming together of this revolution, it means massive employment, huge jobs for 2 generations. Angela Merkel said, we will have this third industrial revolution here in Germany. Premier Li instructed the central government of China to move China to a third industrial revolution. Where's the US here? We say to people, if you have another plan, step forward and tell us what it might be. And I always get silence. This responsibility to save the species is a weight that no generation's had in history. You gotta make this happen. This is the most dramatic story the human family has ever faced.
So that's just available on good old YouTube through Vice, so you can just watch it there. He's got some books: The Green New Deal, Third Industrial Revolution, Zero Marginal Cost Society, Empathic Civilization, The End of Work. So it's all stuff that sounds good. I just don't know enough about him. So if anyone knows stuff about him, do let me know. But anyway, I'm just wishing that Bernie had responded with that. So anyway, let's go back to him though.
This is a planet under siege. You know, I don't want to become a science fiction. You've all seen the movies, the media racing toward Earth. We're going to blow up the Earth. What do? Well, we got to get together. This is, in a sense, what that is about. You know what I think about? In 1941, after Pearl Harbor, all right, we were faced with a war in the East with China, a war in the West in Europe with Hitler. Within 2 years, the United States had transformed its economy to address and win the war, basically in 2 or 3 years, by reindustrializing America. We can do it. We can lead the world. That's what we have to do.
So, in your eyes, we have to look at the economy almost as if the same kind of threat, or excuse me, the environment, as if it's the same kind of threat as Nazi Germany. We act together.
Look, if you ask the Defense Department, you ask the CIA, you ask the defense people all over the world, tell us what the great national security threat is. You know what it is? It is climate change.
There's a lot of people, though, that are skeptical of this. How would you convince them? I mean, this is a big part of the problem, right? There's a narrative that you hear from a lot of people that, climate change is not a proven science and climate change is a hoax. And I mean, this is something that's repeated over and over again. And I'm sure some of it has to do with lobbyists and some of it has to do with merchants of doubt that go out there and see the world with disinformation to try to increase their profits and continue the practices that they're currently enjoying.
You know, Joe, when I'm thinking back, and I don't know if all your listeners can remember this because I'm older than most, but I can remember tobacco ads, cigarette ads on television. Remember?
Yes.
The guy dressed in a white frock, smoking away. This is a great cigarette. It'll improve your health. They lied. The tobacco industry knew exactly what was going on. And the fossil fuel industry is lying right now. And the president of the United States is either too stupid to understand what the scientists are telling us, or he's lying as well. Climate change, look, I am not the scientist. This is not my idea. I listen to the scientists. The debate is long over. Climate change is real. My God, look at what's happening around the world. July was, I think, the warmest July or warmest month in the modern history of the world. The Arctic ice is melting. Heat waves in Europe. All right, just look out the window at what's going on. So this is not Bernie Sanders talking. This is the scientific community. Climate change is real. It will only get worse if we do not act boldly to cut carbon emissions.
Well, we just did an hour, sir, so I'm going to let you go because I know you got very important things to do. One last question. If you got into the office and you found out something about aliens, if you found out something about UFOs, would you let us know?
Well, I'll tell you, my wife would demand that I let you know.
Is your wife a UFO nut?
No, she's not a UFO nut. Just Bernie, what is going on? Do you have any access to the records?
You don't have any access?
I don't. Honestly,
No?
I don't know.
Okay. You let us know, though?
All right, I'll be on the show. We'll announce it on the show. How's
Please.
that? All right,
Please
you got
do.
you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time.
Wait.
Joe, thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
Wait, what? Hold on. I'm gonna
Europe.
put it to normal speed. I want to hear what he said. I feel like that interaction got weird. Okay, what happened there? Starts talking about aliens and Bernie's all. It's like what?
All right, just look out the window at what's going on. So this is not Bernie Sanders talking. This is the scientific community. Climate change is real. It will only get worse if we do not act boldly to cut carbon emissions.
Well, we just did an hour, sir, so I'm going to let you go because I know you got very important things to do. One last question. If you got into the office and you found out something about aliens, if you found out something about UFOs, would you let us know?
Well, I'll tell you, my wife would demand that I let you know.
Is your wife a UFO nut?
No, she's not a UFO nut. It's just, Bernie, what is going on? Do you have any access to the records?
You don't have any access?
I don't. Honestly,
No?
I don't know.
Okay. You let us know, though?
All right, I'll be on the show. We'll announce it on the show. How's
Please.
that? All right,
Please
you got
do.
it, Joe.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate
We'll
your time.
announce
Joe, thank
it
you
on
very,
the
very much.
show. That's what he said. Oh, that's hilarious. We'll announce it on the show. All right, everybody in the comments, feedback, thoughts, concerns, questions. Let me know. I'm going to close this thing out in the next few minutes. I'm sick of Donkey Kong because I set a new record and then I keep dying really early on, and so that is done. But as far as the testing side of things goes, while I wait for people to say stuff about Bernie, before I tell you all a few of my ideas about what I'm going to do for this remix video I'm going to make of this event, of the Bernie being on Rogan, before I do that, I'm just curious, how has the stream been? Has besides the fact that there's a time lag, has anyone experiencing a lot of buffering? Has there been skipping in the audio? Has the resolution been terrible? And is that just because of your YouTube auto doing that because of your speed? Or if you turn it up and you have high speed, are you able to see pretty good resolution? I'm just curious about all of those things. But so okay, what I want to do, first of all, I really want to use the part where Joe Rogan asks about aliens, but I also want to like cut in some part from something else where he brings up DMT, because it just would have been so funny if he had been like, just one last question, have you ever done DMT? The other thing is that Bernie coughs like 50 times in this, and so to take all of those parts where Bernie coughs and then like have a little smoke going in the video and have like clips of Rogan, you know, kind of like hitting it and like handing it across, and Bernie being like, so, and then coughing, because he says that it never really did anything for him. It just made him cough, but he's coughing throughout the whole thing. And here he is in the studio that probably smells like weed with Rogan. So that'll be fun. What was the other part I wanted to make sure to use for the remix? The part where he basically, so Joe Rogan asks the same question about how is this possibly legal? How is there so much money in politics? Is it just business? Is it just the way the business works? He asked the same kind of question like 10 different times. And then finally Bernie just like, because they make the laws, and he like yells it almost, and it's hilarious. So this is one of the best in a while, says River Ransom. Not sure how bad the lag is. Anarchist tech support testing. There's some echo on the YouTube videos you play, and the questions about weed/crime, etc., says Lampe. Otherwise, it's great on my end, says Anarchist tech support. Based Sanders. So, yeah, everybody, I don't know. I thought that was pretty cool. Thanks for joining. Really appreciate it. I know, Spangler. It's weird, huh? You really would have thought Rogan would have offered Bernie a joint. You think he would have lit up. Also, the fact that it was an hour, I was worried that like the interview was just going to turn sour and end or something. It must be that Bernie only agreed to an hour. And it's really too bad. Both of them, I said this at the beginning, both of them seemed like they had just gotten back from like a 6-hour hike, and they were like exhausted from having talked the whole time, and then they were just like going to kind of cover some of the points, but they were tired. And so they both seemed tired. Bad look for Bernie because he's old. He's old, and you know, I understand he's young in spirit compared to some people, and he could probably play basketball around me all day, and I could never beat him. But really, he's old. So all this coughing and being tired business, I don't know about that. Bad luck, man. But the other thing I wanted to look at. Let's go ahead and refresh this and just take a look at some of the comments for this video, because I'm kind of excited to see what we're gonna see here. Let's go ahead. I'll give it a like. And hell no, I don't want to subscribe. You know what happens when you subscribe to this show? You see nothing but their clips constantly, which is why they're the biggest show. Spangler asks if I ever go on other people's Hangout streams. Two things to that response. If you mean Google Hangouts, then nobody has that anymore. But yes, I've been on a live stream with Black Goat 666, which the audio version of that's available on my podcast. I don't think I've been on with anyone else. I might have been. I know. That's a good question. I'm usually the one who invites people to things, and that's the same in real life too. Why don't people invite me to things? I have to be the one who invites everyone to everything. What the hell? What the hell? Come on, people. Anyway, yeah, River Ransom's right. In real life, Bernie's just talking nonstop, so his voice is strained. It's true. I think he. I mean, it's unlike, you know, the establishment people who just like go to select dinners and charge people exorbitant amounts of money to come to, you know, it's like 50 to 100 people or whatever, you know. Bernie is constantly flying everywhere and doing events for free. So it's like the guy is stretched real thin. Well, I'm happy to say this worked. The next test will be one with Lampe, hopefully, maybe someone else. But I want to do the same thing, but start experimenting with the interview stuff. I forgot. We're gonna look at these comments. But yeah, now that YouTube got rid of Google Hangouts and screwed over all of us creators. So, so I said Rogan seemed guarded. I think he was worried Bernie was going to die from this cough. Yeah, let's see top comments. I said you need to have him back to ask about his experience getting pranked by Sacha Baron Cohen. What? Only 4 likes? Come on, people. I'm a conservative, but found this discussion interesting. I really liked the part where Bernie talks about how European candidates get interviewed uninterrupted and how we should incorporate that. Good job, Blue Chip, De Niro. Absolutely love this long format. Thanks for doing this, Joe and Bernie. I mean, this wasn't even long. This was a third of the normal length. GRE should take over the political debates, have actual conversations instead of yelling matches. He wouldn't be bad at it, actually. Timestamps. Do you get frustrated by the time constraints of the debates? Everyone is online. Why bother with TV? Oh, wow. Oh, this person did oh, wow. Good job. That's a freaking index. The DNC is definitely being fishy with polls and pushing Biden. I haven't met a single Biden supporter, but plenty of Yang, Sanders, and Tulsi G supporters. Yeah, the backup plan, you might want to think about that. Why do you think? Oh, because of the internet. And Biden is a fossil who is voted for by fossils whose brains have been fossilized by over 50 years of watching the same freaking news, networks. So, yeah, that's why. Even though I'm a conservative, it was very nice seeing Bernie get a chance to speak freely. I wish this was what each candidate got to do. Joe, you consistently do amazing things, but allowing this man, the great and powerful Bernie Sanders, to speak his mind honest and free is truly amazing. I will be sharing this with everyone I can. This needs to be heard. I hope others will do the same. Yes, Sean Sutton, you're right. I'd give Bernie a shot, ... I mean, what does that even mean? Bernie. So the thing about the DNC is, Joe, wait, you do DMT? Yes! Finally, someone made the joke. Okay. I've heard a lot of things about Bernie, but never got to hear him speak on a platform like this, and I have to say I'm very impressed. Well, good job, Payne. You have a brain. I wish that could have went on for 5+ hours. Bernie 2020. Honestly, I would say just give him 3 hours when he's got energy. That was a little. He's a little under he was stretched a little thin for this interview. If he had half the fire he normally does, there'd be fucking riots in the streets right now. All those gamers that are mad about Biden and Trump would be out there just bashing windshields of any car that had a bumper sticker that wasn't Bernie. And I'm not endorsing that behavior. I just think it would be awesome. So, look, Joe Rogan is no Bill Maher, and that's a good thing. Fuck Bill Maher, dude. Oh my god. You know, Joe Rogan and Bill Maher both platform a lot of shitheads, but Bill Maher has gone from, maybe I've changed. Maybe Bill Maher never changed. Maybe Bill Maher was always kind of shitty, but I don't know. I actually don't know. I will proudly vote for this man. Excellent interview. He actually is sounding really reasonable and pragmatic. Very surprising for a politician. I mean, don't they often sound reasonable and pragmatic? I mean, we had Yang on. Yang's really good at sounding reasonable and pragmatic, and he speaks to a lot of serious issues. He's not an organizer-in-chief like Bernie, and also his plans really just empower billionaires. Bernie, in my opinion, will do all that he can for the American people if he were elected POTUS. Not for 60 minutes of sanity. All right, what's going on in the chat? By Biden. In a sane world, Biden would be primarying Trump. He's a moderate Republican. True. Yeah, no, seriously. And everything he says sounds like a It's like he sounds like a stereotypical boomer, like everything he says. Ain't that the truth? That'd be a good GOP primary. Slow Joe can just go back to retirement. For real. Don't forget that if you're in a closed primary state, that you need to switch your voter affiliation to Democrat months before your state's primary in order to vote for Bernie. You know, I actually have forgotten about that. It's true. I wonder what I have to do now that I've moved. I gotta look into that. I love you, Joe, and I love Bernie. May not agree with everything, but I love his enthusiasm, passion, and his apparent care for America. You know, I think people feel the need to say that they don't agree with everything because people feel like the need to capitulate to purists. Like I had this person up in the comments, and I realized I could have mistaken what they were trying to say, but it was in my community on the channel, and they were coming in there being like, if you support the gun ban, then you can't call yourself a Marxist, and you blah, blah. And it sounded like they were talking to me, and they weren't talking to anyone else that I could see there. And then they were saying all this other stuff about how, like, supporting Warren is, I don't know, whatever. It was just all this gatekeeping, purity stuff. And it's like, people have different reasons for voting. Like, if you are against someone being for a policy or a person on the basis of whether or not that qualifies them for an ism, for like the proper status within an ism, whether it's leftism or liberalism or whatever, that's a real superficial form of analysis because it kind of depends on your theory of social change, right? You could be a socialist incrementalist, and you could be at the same time, like working towards revolution, but still voting within the system for the minor benefits that it would have on other people. Like, for instance, just the mere fact that having someone who constantly says hateful things, that fearmonger, very malleable, easily influenced, highly reactive parts of the population against legal asylum seekers as just like the most easy go-to reason, much less like climate denial. Like just having someone, even if they're just a symbolic sort of puppet, if they're at least not doing that, it's better. And I don't care. And the idea that, you know, we'll be driven to revolution and we'll be able to overthrow this thing if we at least don't have, you know, a puppet and it's, you know, say Trump or something. It's just like obviously doesn't work. I think Hannah Arendt was really good at pointing this out. She said that a lot of revolution, especially violent revolution, just proves to be another version of reform, right? Because you never know what's going to happen the day after the revolution. And so, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, so I feel like people feel the need to capitulate in comments like this to people who are going to come along and try to be like, what, you support them 100% on literally everything? Well, they said this one thing. And it's just like, geez, you know, that's why people don't want to get involved with politics, is because they don't want to have to deal with that person. But whatever. Anyway, so yeah, of course you don't agree with everything Bernie says. Who the hell would agree with everything Bernie says? But anyway, love his enthusiasm, passion, and apparent care for America. Wow, the fact that people all feel like there was a lot of enthusiasm and passion here just shows that they don't spend a lot of time actually tuning in to Bernie. I love long format, and I hope this is the future and or the continued future. For real, though. Or at least has a solid place in information and even entertainment consumption. Totally. Well, I mean, Joe Rogan does have, it's on average 3 hours, and this is the biggest podcast in the world. So people definitely like the format, that's for sure. For it is the nuance and the tedious details of ideas in conversation that really matters and is actually substantial. True, especially when it's real and not just Ruben saying that. Anyway, obviously we're just going to see all of the best or the most pro-Bernie comments at the top here. All right, I'm about to close out, everybody. Let's get to the final thoughts, final comments. Do you hear Biden being asked to answer for his statement about having no empathy for younger generations? He sounds like he's endorsing Bernie. What? Really? Steve, is it a clip that I could show? He's my generation.
Secular Talk has a video about it.
Okay, you should just share that in the comments. He sounds like he's endorsing Bernie. What did Joe say, Steve? My generation did all these great things. Kids these days need to get out there and change stuff. Yeah, Bernie is and then Steve says, yeah, Bernie is the change candidate. You're the status quo. Are you saying kids should vote Bernie? True. What do you mean they tried that before, River? Are you saying that they tried to get Bernie in before because the superdelegate system was different and he only lost by a couple of points anyway? That's the craziest thing. It's like, besides the superdelegates, Bernie would have had it just by a few points, and the superdelegate system, which had basically already chosen already chosen Hillary, before the primaries even began, years in advance, because they had, they always make these decisions. They think they have the right to do so. Bernie still almost came, to the point where he could have won. Without that in the way, without so many people saying it doesn't matter, the superdelegates make it so that it's impossible for him to win. Without that blocking the road to success, because Our Revolution did get in there and actually change some things, yeah, he's got a way more serious possibility of winning. And the whole thing about polls and all these polls that are favoring Biden, these are CNN voters. These are MSNBC voters. These are people who have landlines. Do you even know anybody who has a landline? I don't even think my parents have landlines anymore. Steve, Mom and Dad don't have... No, they don't. They don't. They did my whole life and they don't even have landlines anymore. So it's like, who the hell even has the landlines to answer these stupid polls? People who are like, between 60 and 80, bless their, fragile hearts, but I wouldn't like take them to be indicative of anybody's chances, that's for sure. Oh, Steve, you shared it. I'm going to open it. I'm going to play it right now. Oh, shit. I'm going to lose my live control room. Okay, I'm going to go back, and then I have to open that link in a different... I thought it would have just automatically opened it into a different window, but no, it did not. Wow, so we've got 14 concurrent viewers right now, and we've got 96 playbacks, whatever that means. So that's cool. Average watch time has been 10 minutes. 4 of you have been with us the entire time. 8 of you have been with us most of the time. 12 of you have been with us the last third of the time. So thanks everybody who's been hanging. Hope you're having fun. Chill streams are fun. I have fun with them. And I kind of miss doing them because I've had issues with internet, reliable speeds out in my little house. Oh, isn't that cute? Look at, oops, something went, oh wait, you all can't see. Oh my god, you all couldn't see the comments when I was reading them off? No one said anything. I thought you could all see that stuff. Okay. Jeez. Okay, let's make this bigger. And I'll just put me, where should I put me? Down here? Down here, because I'll be looking the other way probably. Okay, isn't that unicorn pretty cute? It's like, oops, something went wrong. Yeah, well, we all see through now, and now we know that unicorns are really, there's people in there. Crisis actors, no doubt. Why is it opening YouTube Studio? Steve, your link is garbage. It's been cool, y'all. Joseph Jane says it's been cool. Ben says, oh, I thought we weren't supposed to see the comments when you read them. No, yeah, I was just reading the comments from under the Joe Rogan thing, so actually you totally could have. But yeah, you all took my word for it. Well, I did just read faithfully, so, you know. Steve, it's taking me to the YouTube studio for some reason. Here, I'm just going to text secular talk. How would I find this? Young. Let's just say young, and then let's say youth. Biden tells young people not to vote for him.
So Joe Biden, also known as Handsy Uncle Joseph, doubled down on his millennial bashing. He's a well-known millennial basher. You're going to hear one of his old quotes brought up to him in this interview. This is with the Huffington Post. Now, yet again, Biden is going to make one of the dumbest political moves of all time. Let's take a look.
In January, you gave an interview, and you talked about how that you've heard from some people in the younger generation about how tough things are, and you said, "I have no empathy for it. Give me a break." I was hoping you could explain that comment. And do you think that younger people today, have the same opportunities that people in your generation do? Or are there structural barriers where it's actually hard?
Well, let me tell you what I meant by that. I was at a university. I taught at University of Pennsylvania, University of Delaware. And I was being told, things are tough, we're not going to be involved. When I did a commencement speech 3 years ago, I was told at that particular speech that just before that, the university had just done a study. And only 17%, they're the most, how can I say it, the most progressive generation, the best educated generation in American history, the most open generation, the most generous, but only 17% said they'd be willing to run for public office. And the kids raised their hand and said, "I don't want to run because it's so bad." I said, "Give me a break." My point is that we got up, our generation, prior to that, my generation, just prior to it, said, go to Haight-Ashbury, drop out, don't be involved, don't get engaged. And we said, we've had enough. We have an obligation to get engaged. And y'all have an obligation to get engaged. So I make no apology. Get engaged. Be involved. Don't tell me how bad it is. Change it. Change it. Change it. My generation did. We got the Civil Rights Act passed. We moved into women's, the whole across the board. So I just don't want to hear people telling me on a college campus, "Woe is me, I have all this, but I'm not going to get involved because it's bad." Come on.
Somebody made a great point on Twitter. They said it's almost like Joe Biden is endorsing Bernie Sanders, or at the very least endorsing not voting for him. He's like, don't complain, get involved. If you want to change stuff, change stuff. Yeah, well, Joe, I got news for you. You are the candidate of the status quo. You're the candidate of centrism. You're the candidate of business as usual. Bernie Sanders is the candidate.
Cool. Yeah, you get the point, right? Everyone should get the point. I'm going to go ahead and read off these comments, and I'll share them. So, Fart Huffin, underneath my 4 Phases of Capitalism segment of the interview I did with Nancy Fraser. If you haven't seen that, you need to. It's a great series. There's a whole playlist with all the videos of it in there. They say some stuff about the video itself, and then they say, "P.S. Sorry about the pronouns. They, them is hard when writing in the singular. This is a perfect opportunity to create a new pronoun that is inclusive." And I've had a lot of interesting feedback since I came out as non-binary and genderqueer and started using they them pronouns. And the most cliche, tired response is the one that it's too hard, or it's too much of an uphill battle, or that it's just too weird, or they just forget too much. And it's like, you're allowed to forget. Everyone forgets. When you forget, if you catch yourself forgetting, go ahead and fix it. Don't apologize all the time. There's no point apologizing all the time, at least not to me. I hate apologies. I especially hate apologies when it's not for really serious stuff. And to me, like, breaking old habits is really hard. And if you're not committed to breaking those habits yet, with me, I don't really care. With some other people, it might matter a lot more. And so you really ought to think about it. And I hope that people at least start thinking about it with me. I'm a good practice dummy for that. But the thing is like, I have my response. I just thought I'd share that because I haven't really talked about this before on this channel. I say, so first of all, I think that this user was calling Nancy Fraser she, her, and then was apologizing for using she, her. And it's like, no, Nancy does use she, her. So first of all, but the first person singular for they gets easier with time. It may help to just think of the individual as their own plurality or multiplicity. If you think about the fact that there is, wait, I didn't even finish my comment here. Jeez, fail. But okay, what I meant to say here is that if you think about the fact that there are a lot of different aspects of every one individual, so in a certain sense, especially in philosophy, when you try to pin down, are you essentially this part of you that you were, if you've changed now, is you the quarterback the same as you in theater, or whatever, and or what about after a traumatic brain injury, or what about you if you're different within different dynamics, whether they're relationship dynamics or social dynamics. So anyway, we're all, in a certain sense, multitudes, all in a certain sense, pluralities. And I'm not saying, and I was trying to say this in there, that I'm not saying that that this has to be your ontology, that this has to be your worldview of the most basic structure of human beings, so that when you use they, them for an individual, you're not necessarily, you could be using it in the plural still. I'm not saying that you need to think about it that way. I'm just saying that it can work as a shortcut. It can work as a shortcut. If you have a difficult time speak using they, them, it's just an old, the habit. It just makes it difficult to speak of an individual using using they, them. Then I'm just saying that can help, and it's a nice little trick, little life hack for you. If you have trouble with it, maybe think about it. It might work. And then I say arguably, blah blah blah. I think I already covered that. Anyway, they had a nice response. I think that this just isn't showing the rest of the comments because it's cutting them all off. So much for YouTube. It used to show me the whole thing. Whatever. Anyway, that was all just a side tangent because I don't talk about pronouns a lot, and it is important. So it's a good thing to practice. And one of the things that I say is that it's just so annoying to. One, when people double down on using he, him as the universal, it's just annoying. It's also annoying when people try to juggle he and she, especially like in the context of like an article or a paper. They're referring to some scientist, so they'll say she, and then they're referring to some artist, and they'll say he, and it's just like, I mean, you can do that. It's fine, but it's so much easier just to get in the habit of they, theming, because the thing is it works for everybody. Like, if you just use it as the gender neutral go-to for people before you know how they identify, it causes no harm. It's wonderful. It's wonderful, and it's a great habit. That's all I'm saying. Doesn't matter. But all right, what else is going on in here? By Biden, the centrist, the rightist leaning centrist in the Democrat. Well, I won't say the rightist because I don't know. Fuck you too, Slow Joe. I hope I'm not supposed to filter language. LOL. Is someone saying that you're supposed to filter language? I mean, yeah. What? There's just stuff I must have missed. Wow, there's a lot of stuff going on in here. I'm glad that this is a happening chat. I'm gonna play a closing song. Sorry, I don't know any of these songs. I'm just getting to know them. This isn't what I wanted. I'm trying to change it. Give me my synth song. Oh, there we go. Yeah, let's go down. Do. Silent partner. That's always good. Oh my god, was I just talking about they, them pronouns and then Steve, he, himmed me? Come on, Steve. But yeah, no one has to filter their language in here unless they're dropping ableist slurs or whatever, you know. But besides that, everyone should be fine. Oh, Steve's asked. Okay, Steve was just asking why comments are getting flagged whenever there's cussing. As a mod, that's what he was wondering. Good. Okay, that makes sense. So that's just YouTube. That's not my settings. That's just YouTube. That's just how it works. I guess the last thing I'll say is I hope that you can join me tomorrow at 12:30 Pacific Daylight Time on this channel for the premiere of a video essay that I'm really excited to share. It's part of my Priceless Essay series. And then also that Steve McCarricker, my brother, aka the mod, in the live chat, is starting his own channel. I don't know if he's got his first video up yet. I don't think so. I would have shared it if he did. But his approach is going to be very different from my own. It's basically just like problem solving and critical theory for normal people, as a means towards just bettering your own personal life. Maybe eventually he'll get into some more political stuff like this. He is really into Bernie and stuff like that. But the thing is he's more just like, let's speak to people where they're at when people are hurting. How do you go from not really having a handle on anything to taking care of some of the more significant roadblocks in front of you so that you're able to start really making yourself into what you're trying to be, right? So that might sound a little self-helpy, but I think that the fact that that's a bad thing to some people is sad. It's sad because it just tells us about how stupid the self-help industry tends to be. It's sad, though, also because some people think that some of the obvious stuff of self-help is obvious. Well, it's obvious because maybe you had a family, maybe you had a dad who like had enough time to talk to you about some of the things that that other people need to get from books or whatever, and I think that we're seeing nowadays, especially a lot of streaming and a lot of YouTube has kind of taken on the role of supplying people with the useful tools for thinking through their problems wherever they're at. And sometimes it's effective and sometimes it's terrible, it's dangerous. But the more people who care about the general well-being of humanity and planet doing it, the better. And so that's awesome. Hopefully Steve will end up like Jordan Peterson, except not at all like like Peterson. Okay then, I think I'm gonna have to close this out. There's way too many cultural Marxists in the stream. I can just smell their collectivist stench. Yeah, Steve, there really is a bad perspective on self-help. I think that whenever there's cheap or bad self-help, there just needs to be more better self-help, because the fact is like when you've not had a good education and you've not had a lot of good role models, you can't take that stuff for granted. There's a lot of the social and cultural capital that's just missing for you, and so it's very useful for people who come from poverty or are marginalized in a million other ways. So something got into my water. All right, everybody, have a good night. I'm gonna let this song finish. Take care.